Hi everyone, this is Raybo, and today is I want to talk about a couple things that I've seen a lot of questions on, whether it's Discord or the Nexus or the forums, and talk about Vortex. And particularly, I kind of want to just cut through the chase, and this probably won't help, people who are familiar with Vortex, but new users. And I see a lot of comments about loot, manual load orders, categories, groups, and rules. So I kind of want to just do something short and sweet here. I'll probably mess this up and need to do it 5 times over again over the next couple weeks. But basically, the first thing I want to say is categories. It's cosmetic. So if you go to your mods tab and you go to categories, you're going to see some, stock setups in there that basically emulate what's on the Nexus. Okay. You can add to the category and just add child, and you can see here that I've added all settlements, extended borders, and I wanted a quick way to find my updatable F4SE mods when F4SE updates. So I created categories for those. Categories do nothing to sort your load order. They're cosmetic, and they will just help you organize your mods better, so you can, as long as you assign them to these type of categories, you can quickly go into Vortex and check them out. So let's see here. It's going to be on the top. We can look at my unassigned. And so people can see that I am testing mods for a few authors. So, and here's some of the updatable ones. There's actually more. So, but I have them listed in other categories. So now that's categories. Now I'm going to go to the plugins tab, and there's a couple things I want to say. When you're setting up Vortex, I think there's some confusion on, maybe not confusion, but I can see how it would be for new users. Groups. Okay. That's kind of hard, I think, sometimes for new users to get their head around when they're used to doing a manual sort. Now, what I'm going to say is this, that there's a tab up here, and you can watch Gopher's videos, and I strongly recommend that you do. So I'm going to kind of babble here. And then I also see, authors telling new users to follow their load orders and not use loot. I think loot is a very valuable resource, like any tool. I have a simple rule when it comes to Vortex that it works for me, is that when I'm setting up a load order, I like to loot it, group it, and then add my rules. And there's a reason why I go in those orders. And I know this looks like some funky Skyrim skill tree here, but and I don't know why Vortex has these not in some type of more structured pattern. Now, what happens here with Vortex and the groups is, and what I would recommend is, when you look at this tree for setting up your groups, I think it's handy because you can kind of define it based on your own load order. So if you're particularly new to Vortex, I think the best way to manage this is to start with a light load order and loot it. And what you're going to see here is all these disconnected little dots. They were the stock what's in Vortex groups. Okay, I did not like those. I had used them for a while and tried to put things in there, and but it didn't really fit my load order. So I made a completely new one. I kept the only actual vanilla one I kept was the default. And we'll see how long this video goes and if I remember it, but I'm a big fan of the default group. So anyway, you can disconnect all these others and create your own groups. And it gives you instructions here on how to do that. The one thing I will say is that you will crash it if you, at times when you're trying to disconnect these and you don't have them touching the right ones. So if I was going to create a group between SimSettlement add-ons and Workshop, I would right-click the desktop here, add group. I can type a name. And then I can draw arrows, so let's go test. Okay. Oh, I guess it should follow the instructions. You have to control down I got excited. The shift key. I mean the control key. I'll hold down the control key and I can draw arrows. And then I can take this out if I wanted to. Alright. So that's how you set up a new group, and that's how you disconnect these. I'm going to take this out. Okay, so you can set up, so you know there's tons of load order formats out there. You can set up these groups. Now, what I'm going to say is, thanks to Sherlock and Whisper, one of the best resources, in my opinion, that has always been out there is Byrant Beck's mod list. Now I'm going here to the forums tab, and I think what you'll see here is here's one of our own SimSettlement authors here talking on this particular forum. But the post that I want to show you guys is Amber's 1019 here. She is an extremely sharp author and user. So if you really wanted to see a well thought out set of groups, come and take a look on Byrant Beck's where is it? The forums tab, and take a look at what she did. And she kind of spells out here how she took out all the vanilla ones and added all her custom groups. I wanted originally, when I first started using groups, to set up less groups. I think this is just such a great example, but even with 400 mods, I don't need and I don't like this level of affinitizing the different groups, but I think it is good for people who like to get that detailed. I wanted to go more here, but when you look at my layers when I'm talking about baking a save, these are more how you activate mods in the plugins tab, because baking a save game, what it is this is already laid out in order, no different than what Gambit 77 or Byrant Beck does. Is in a previous game, I will loot everything, get new mods installed, and then start a new game with everything already in order. And before I start that new game, I will disable almost everything. And then I'll go through and use my baking the save. And as I go through the the pre-world startup and then the vault sequence, I'll layer mods in. Now, what I'll say is, if you look at the baking the save thread, is that, you know, mods like VizG, you're going to want to have those, you know, you're going to want those active when you start the new game, because as you hit, you know, level list items and items, particularly in the new vault, the vault sequence, if you have items that are generated by the game that are modded in there, if you don't have VizG and their relative, you know, their associated patches, they're not going to be tagged. So, you know, let's say you have a weapon on the level list that generated and you activated those late, you might find that you have a bunch of, let's say, weapons that don't have a VizG tag. Now, folks know that you can throw them on the ground or you can take them to the workbench, and then the VizG tag will show up. But this isn't by any means supposed to be groups. This is just the sequence in which you activate the mods as you're going through the different stages of the vault and the entering the game, or starting Conqueror. Now, so you go through, and now mine's all mixed up again, but when you start, before you start a new game, I would recommend, and hopefully before you have a bunch of rules set up, because what you'll find is you're going to get a bunch of vortex errors sometimes when you have a bunch of rules. If you've only been using rules and then you start trying to apply a bunch of groups, you're probably going to have to remove a few rules, because the groups will take care of that for you. So anyway, all my Lord order is dictated. You can see the ESMs. Actually, I'll go back. You can see here that I have Creation Club's ESLs. You can see here also that in my mods tab, that I've packaged them, archived them, and installed them with a mod installer, which is Vortex. The Creation Club files can be difficult when you're trying to start a new game. Oftentimes the Bethesda site will download incomplete files when you're trying to start up a new game. So no matter how many mods you disable, you will still probably get a crash to desktop, or it won't load the game. So what I recommend when you're setting up a new game and is you individually you take everything Creation Club out of your data folder, you individually download these, pull them out of your data folder, put them in another folder, and put them in their little package. There's usually three files in each one, and then you archive it, and then you install them with a mod organizer. That way you can kind of verify that the Creation Club files, each one of these is it works. I had an issue on a recent restart where I had purchased a skin pack, and there was probably Pip-Boy skins, armor skins, weapon skins, and there was one Pip-Boy skin that was causing a crash to desktop every time I was trying to start my new game. And it was still, it's still defective when I try to download it, that one skin for a Pip-Boy from the Creation Club. And it'll prevent your game from starting. So I think this is just my way of trying to circumvent some of Bethesda's incompetence. But anyway, what we're here is to talk about groups. So as you see here, here's my ESMs. ESLs, you're going to see that I don't put them into a group. Vortex will do that automatically. Okay. You're going to see a couple here, though, that are in my group is ESM, ESLs, and user interface. So I have a HUD mod here, and Clarity I consider a UI mod. I probably will later move it farther down because I've noticed that a lot of files are overriding it, but that's kind of what the author suggests, is you let other files override it. But some of those mods that are overriding it, I don't think need to. So anyway, the next thing you'll see is Sim Settlement add-ons. And here you can see my Sim Settlement add-ons. So, and all you need to do to change the group is just go over here while you're in the plugins tab and hit group and assign it to that group. So before I start the new game, because the Sim Settlement add-ons, if you're just using default, will be pretty much splattered throughout your load order. So you know, the grouping just pulls them all into one area. Pretty high up. There's not a lot that's going to conflict with the Sim Settlement add-on, so they're very safe to put near the top of your load order. And then, of course, workshop mods are typically high up. I like putting all my CBB next. I have a bunch of location overhauls and things that touch locations, so unless I have a good reason, I'm going to keep them pretty high up too. Now, I want to talk a little bit here about what I call chains or microthreads. Within a group, sometimes, or within a load order, like here's Fusion City Rising, Outcast and Remnants, Project Valkyrie. And then you're going to see some others. I noticed this when I was looking at Gambit's load order, that some of these you really ideally would like to have in a certain order. The best example is Better Settlers. So let's take a look at Better Settlers. Okay, so that's at 202. I see a ton of people posting load orders on the Sim Settlement forums. And one of the first things I look at to see if they've read the mod author's instructions is to look at Better Settlers and see if they followed the author's instructions and put them in the right order so they work. And almost 100% of the time they're splattered all over the place. Now here, Better Settlers has a number of things like there's a hairstyles mod and Ellie's clothing mod that needs to go before them. You need Better Settlers, no lollygagging, clean face, mostly female. Here's the patch pack for the clothing pack, and here's the mortal pack. These need to be in the right sequence, chain. But if you notice, they're in a group, okay, that is much larger. Vortex, oftentimes when you put them in a group, well, because it uses loop, well, get them close. But sometimes you need to make a rule, and here I put after no lollygagging, just to make sure that within that group, that still loads in the sequence the author had instructed. So we have a bunch of those type of mods here. I put all my clothing and weapons in here. VisG, if I can find it now. When you look at Gambit 77, this one helped me. Oh, and here's one. Ivy has to be before Workshop Extended. I mean Armor Smith Extended. And I don't have a rule for that, but I have a rule for that here. Okay. So you go through and put them in the groups that will get them sorted. Now, if you notice, I also kept this default here, which came with a vanilla grouping. I like default. For mods, and I could actually probably make this into a group, because as I get everything else into groups, I'm seeing kind of a trend here of what's left over, and I'm fine with that. But let's say you add a mod and you put it in here and you leave it at default. Well, there isn't really a problem with that. A lot of mods don't need to be sorted into groups. So if you have a mod that really doesn't touch anything, I don't really see a problem leaving it here in default. Then I have kind of a sloppy catch things that with my overwrite but overwritten, which sounds kind of goofy, but it's usually just mods that I know that overwrite something else, but something else is going to come in and grab them. So if I have a chain that requires a sequence of mods in multiple groups, this kind of helps me with that. I have a Hangman's Alley mod that has a chain that really spans my whole load order, and in order to get everything in Diamond City to work, Thuggy Smurfs mods to work, and the Hangman's Alley mod to work, I have to put all those different mods in different groups so they all overwrite at the right time. So this is just another group to help me do that. And then I have one that's just generally overwrites companions, and then of course patches. And you're going to see some groups that I haven't used. I don't use scrap everything, but I have some, contingency, a contingency group here of dead last. And the only reason I put that in there is because I saw other people doing it. Dead last. Let's see if we can get this one to show. Dead last. I thought, well, if these smart people are doing it, I'm going to do it too. But anyway, so what I'm trying to get at is when you look at a load order that's been well grouped, okay, sorted with loot, well grouped, sorted again with loot, and then the rules applied, mostly due to user experience, testing, and mod author instructions, you get a load order that is very close to things that Byrant Beck and Gambit 77 recommend as far as load orders. So that's the point that I'm getting at, is that Vortex is a tool, loot is a tool. What you're trying to get to is a good load order. I think Vortex provides the tools to grow into a really healthy, or in my case, overweight load order. But hopefully this will help some of you guys to understand the difference between categories, which is cosmetic, groups, which actually sort your load order, and rules that you can apply to sort within groups once those mods have been applied to those groups. Now, I will still say that the automatic sorting in Vortex is very handy. And it will indicate when you've set up stupid rules or inappropriate groups, because there's, and I don't know if I know the right term here, but I'm going to go up to Better Settlers again, because one of the things about loot is they have what's called metadata in it. And that's things that have already been pre-assigned in there, saying, like, here's ASAR ponytails. Now, some of these you can't delete. So these 3 mods I've added rules to for Better Settlers. These other ones were already in there. So those are hardwired into the metadata of loot. That's kind of why I'm saying that loot is a good thing. There's some things that they know that Better Settlers need to load after, but what I'm trying to say also is, if you get your groups all messed up and you try to shove one of these mods out of sequence and you don't understand where these things are supposed to go, loot's going to let you know, and it's going to start talking about when you're trying to put these other mods, let's say, after when loot knows they need to go before. And I've never seen this hard-coded metadata be wrong. I suppose it could be, and I suppose people will find examples, but I haven't. So, you know, with me and my 400 mods, there isn't a lot of mods that have this. So, but I call these are the type of mods, Better Settlers, the Thuggy Smurf mods with the Outcasts and Remnants and Project Valkyrie. These are chain mods that what I do is I build my entire load order around those chains. So when I set up my groups, you know, it's pretty simple. You can literally start as a new user and say, okay, I got a group for ESMs. Okay, you can put them there. Okay, Sim Settlement add-ons. If you're a Sim Settlement user, great idea. Workshop, great idea. Some of these others get kind of subjective, but when I put in like alternate quests and NPC monsters for my load order, these right here, which would ordinarily be probably part of the default group, come in very, very handy. Okay, and so does the patches. Companions, I will say that given some of the companions, I've moved them around a bit. If you're using amazing follower tweaks, I think this is probably maybe a little bit more important that you have a companions group. But a lot of these groups really depend on your load order. So that's why I'm saying that for a new user, start small. You can add groups as you go. Just like I showed you, you can hold down the control key, add a group, draw lines to it, hold down the control key again. You can remove this line by right-clicking it, and now you got a group in there. So as your load order increases and you know certain mods or chain mods need to go at a certain stage in your defined grouping, you can add them. So hopefully this will demystify a little bit about loot in groups and categories. Thank you guys, and hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.